This morning I'm talking about the heart as part of an Agni yoga series. It's interesting to think about the heart. Over the years, as I've listened to people talk about the heart, the nature of the heart, my heart thinks, my heart says, it becomes very confusing when you compare the general understanding of conversation when people talk about the nature of the heart in relationship to the esoteric understanding. The esoteric understanding is very scientific, it gets very specific, and soon we begin to recognize that the heart is not pure until we purify it. The heart accumulates events, both negative and positive events. The heart, in a sense, is a filter system, but it doesn't become a filter system until it's purified. Once it's purified, the nature of the heart is purified, then there's a beautiful filter system that reminds you of the principles of life. It reminds you about the virtues of life, like the practice of harmlessness, like non-reaction, unless it's a controlled reaction, unless it's a controlled anger, which we call righteous anger, and so forth. So when the esotericist says, I'm speaking from my heart, it means something very different, very scientific, very specific, as opposed to the uneducated individual that says, you know, from my heart, I mean this or that. And then later you may wonder, how could they say they're speaking from their heart when they were so hurtful? So today I'm going to be talking about what Agni Yoga teaches us about the heart. Students who are on a spiritual path are continuously motivated to bring light, love, beauty, and even creativity into their environment. And this is how they do it. They do it by striving toward the highest. They're not striving to imitate others. They're not striving to position themselves in a environment of power and things that will, how can I say this, things that will bring attention to themselves. In other words, they're moving beyond the personality life. I was listening to a TED Talk this morning about personality traits. This was a conversation given or presented by Brian Little, who apparently has written a book as well about the 5 personality traits. And as I was listening to them, these 5 traits, you know, this is the first step to understanding a person's nature. So this would be, the first step would even be before a person becomes an aspirant. This would be a person that says, you know, I really want to know who I am. Who am I? And then they go through these 5 different personality traits to determine what their primary focus is in terms of behavior and so forth. Like it went from being an extrovert to an introvert, from being a stable person to a neurotic person, from being very, I can't remember the other 3. But that's what I was interested in. I was really interested in learning more about the difference between an extrovert and an introvert, and the stable person and the neurotic person. one thing I do remember about a neurotic person or an extrovert is that as they age, and aging would be, they didn't give a specific, age factor. They just made a general statement, or Brian did, and that they finally fall into particular groupings of people. And so if you're a neurotic individual, that should mellow out a little bit as you age in this particular, grouping of people. The same with like an extrovert. This Brian Little said he's an extrovert, but in fact he said, I'm really an introvert, but I become an extrovert when I profess myself. And he said the way he professes himself is he's a professor. And so he teaches college level, and he said his classes start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he said he cannot portray introvertish behavior at 8 o'clock in the morning because the students all come in half asleep. So he has to be an extrovert for that, that moment. And then he talked about being around extrovertish people. It's exhausting. And he has to take a break from, people that are extrovert. So it was really an interesting talk, but, and I found a lot of information in it as an educational point, yet it's not applying to the spiritual student who is striving toward the highest. We fall into different categories, more specific categories, like what is your primary ray? What is your secondary ray? What is the ray of your monad? What is the ray of your personality? What is the ray of your soul? And these, influences unfold and mature and become more creative as we strive toward the highest. So as we strive toward the highest and we're trying to bring in light and love and beauty and creativity, then there is a necessary refinement that takes place. And this takes place as a result of us striving toward the highest. Striving toward the highest means striving toward self-perfectment. So self-perfectment is actually the theme of our upcoming Living Ethics conference. So if you're coming to that conference, or even if you're not, think of this term self-perfectment, because it is a term that you're going to read about in Agni Yoga through different, like self-perfectment, self-perfection, and so forth. So striving to the highest means striving towards self-perfectment, toward greater beauty, toward greater love, toward increasing light, toward justice, toward freedom. Striving, now this is important to think about, because we are such mental individuals. So now the teaching is telling us striving must take place through the heart and not through the mind. See, mentally, we go to school, grade school, junior high, high school, college, and as we get into the higher and higher grades, we shift from the nature of the heart to the mind. The mind says, I must strive so that I can have a better position, I can be more powerful, I can be more recognizable, I can be more popular, I can be this and that. And then your filter system is the mind, it's not the heart. In fact, you don't even have a filter system yet in your heart, because the mind, is first and foremost of your day-to-day activity. So we're going to bring that back into balance now to understand that striving, if we want to strive to bring in light and love and beauty and creativity, it must be done through the heart and not through the mind. The mind says, if you follow your heart, you may lose money. You may lose time. You may lose energy. And maybe you're going to lose your popularity. The heart says, do it in the light of solemnity, beauty, and selflessness. The mind calculates and bases its activities on past experiences and data. But the heart dares. It has courage, and it strives toward the future. The mind says a human being can do things according to the abilities that he develops. The heart says a person can do almost anything if he dares. See the difference? So we must ask ourselves, are we a person of mind or a person of heart? Or maybe we're balanced between mind and heart, which I'm not talking about today. I'm just kind of throwing the idea in because we don't want to be too much heart. We don't want to be too much mind. We want to be in balance. Now the mind says you can't. And boy, do I hear that a lot. Do you want to? No, I can't do that. Well, why don't, no, I can't do that. And the more you say, no, I can't, you are building this mental block around you that the heart says, I give up. You know. So you have to wait till your next incarnation, and then perhaps you'll try it then. Because the heart says, I can do almost anything if I dare to do it. See, why is this? The mind says, because I won't do it perfectly. And if I don't do it perfectly, then people are going to criticize me. And I'll look inept, and I'll look like a failure. That's what the mind does. But the heart says, there is every possibility within us. We can do it. So we must remember the power of the heart. Without a cultured heart, this is an important word. I mean, we're talking about the cultured heart and the uncultured heart. Without a cultured heart, which is a pure heart, without a cultured heart, our family will not survive. Our group will not survive. So this means that the group must have a cultured heart. Isn't that interesting? The family must have a cultured heart to survive. If humanity does not have a cultured heart, it will not evolve. If there is no evolution in its place, then there's going to be decay and decomposition. The greatest power in our life is our heart. We must think through our heart. We must think through our heart. It is in thinking through our heart we will change our life. Our family life, our group life, in the life of the world. We cannot save ourselves with our mind. Particularly the older we get, the mind is so concrete in its thinking that we start out saying, okay, I can do this. No, I can't. I can do it. No, I can't. And the older you get, the more you can't. So it's so interesting. And then the mind gives up and then we get lazy. We cannot save ourselves with our mind, only with our heart, our cultured heart. It is the mind that refuses to let go of the past, of the memories of past pain and suffering, hurts and rejections. This is kind of a personal story, but it's so neat and it's so educational. As you know, I lost my son 2 months ago. So I had a dream with him in it last night. It was so neat. I didn't realize what was going on until the very end of the dream. I didn't know he was going to be there, and he was there. And he showed me a different version of himself. He was very British. He had a, what do they call, like a horsehound jacket, like Sherlock Holmes used to wear, you know, and a hat that was very dapper, you know, it had that crease in the front. And he looked at me, and I said, why are you even here? Usually when people die and they present themselves to me, I can easily recognize them because they present an earlier version of themselves, a younger version of themselves. Whereas Jeff let me know his form has changed. It was so beautiful. No, and I really needed to know that so that he wasn't anchored, you know, to the earth. But the mind hangs on through memories, hangs on to pain and suffering, hurts and rejections. It is the heart that forgives and heals. It is the heart that sees the joy and knows the wisdom behind all events. Nicholas Rourke wrote about the heart. He said, a great criminal may be a devoted family man. Consequently, if his good feelings are still capable of being aroused in relationship to his near ones, in the same way some increased effort then can be extended toward all that exists. He wrote, at present, people are not setting up as an ideal St. Francis of Assisi, who even addressed a wolf as Brother Wolf. Not even accepted as the ideal of the ascetics who possessed the language of the heart, which is understood by both birds and animals. Alongside these lofty ideals, about which people usually exclaim, well, we're not St. Francis. There can be the meeting ground of common humanity. There could be. And then he concluded by saying, on this heartfelt basis, it is still possible to open even the most tightly sealed heart. The Master M says, can you imagine what humanity would represent with healthy bodies and uncultured hearts? Healthy bodies and uncultured hearts. An uncultured heart is a condition that can be found in people, groups, or nations that are heartless. So a cultured heart is pure, an uncultured heart is heartless. Heartlessness is nothing but an uncultured condition of the heart. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Master M tells us that an uncultured heart is a feast of darkness. He says, verily, so long as the heart has not become enlightened, diseases and infirmities will not be removed. And he's talking about from one incarnation to another, to another, to another, that we bring them forward each life. It was said long ago of the holy man, he walked before the Lord. That means he did not violate the hierarchy, the principles of hierarchy: beauty, goodness, righteousness, joy, freedom, service, sacrificial service, striving. If you go against that, you are in violation of hierarchy. If you walk before the Lord, that means that you are living these principles without exception. So this holy man that walked before the Lord means he did not violate the hierarchy, and thus he had a purified heart. Through the slightest purification of the human heart, one can manifest a waterfall of benefaction. The quote goes on to say, without falling into despondency, one must know that the darkness has become heavy and many hearts are putrid. The actuality of the significance of the heart is an old truth, but never has it been so needed as now. And that is found in the book Heart, verse 13. It goes on to say, from that book Heart, culture of the heart is not accumulated if it does not receive proportionate nourishment. Likewise, the best accumulator is inactive without protection and correct connection. The heart demands constant nourishment, otherwise deprived of the highest link. It then decays. So how do we nourish our heart? How do we make it cultured? Illumination, purification, meditation, contact with your higher self, contact with the ashram, contact with hierarchy. That's how we nourish and protect our heart nature. As light bearers, how can we heal and purify our hearts? So you have to consider yourself to be a light bearer to pay attention. If you don't, then go to sleep. As light bearers, how can we heal and purify our hearts? If our hearts need continuous nourishment, this means we must find ways to continuously heal and purify our heart. How can we heal and purify the heart of the family, the heart of the group, the heart of the nation? See, if you're a light bearer, you want to know these things. This is your to-do list, your go-to list, your how to live list as a light bearer. The first step is to heal the heart. To healing the heart is contact with hierarchy. Hierarchy is considered the heart center of the planet. Hierarchy is a source of psychic energy. It makes all things new and regenerates the whole system. Contact with the hierarchy takes place as a result of what? Great striving, labor, invocation. Once this contact is established, psychic energy then infiltrates our whole system, our whole mechanism, and purifies and strengthens it and transforms it. This is how, I was thinking of Mother Teresa. I just posted a picture of Mother Teresa on my Facebook this last week in regard to how we can, how we can strengthen and be a stronghold for others. And so I didn't want it to appear to be so esoteric, so I showed a picture of, Mother Teresa holding a baby, and of course it just went sort of viral because everybody recognizes Mother Teresa. Well, the question is, she immersed herself in the most difficult of human conditions. And she survived. She died a very old lady. How did she do all that she did? Contact with Christ, contact with the head of hierarchy, Christ, which then established psychic energy throughout her entire system, purified her heart, strengthened her nature, and helped her in the process of transformation. See, we have to practice it. Otherwise, we just sit there, as a student of the ageless wisdom, but not as a person traveling a spiritual path. We have all the knowledge, but we don't have anything behind it to experience. See what that knowledge has given to us. It's just book knowledge. So we have to practice it. So, for example, if you believe your group is ill, the first step is to polarize your whole being toward the hierarchy and try to establish a contact with that great center of healing energy. How do we know we've made contact? You know it because there is a certain kind of electrical energy that fills your head, your heart, your entire physical, emotional, and mental system. On the physical level, this contact creates warmth and fragrance and light and color. And the fragrance is beautiful. How can we imagine fragrance? Well, Agni Yoga tells us the freesia flower. See? So it's the fragrance of the freesia or rose. On the emotional plane, it creates a profound peace and a feeling of release. See, there's nothing neurotic in this, right? There's nothing about being an extrovert or an introvert in this. The psychic energy, once we make contact with the heart of humanity, hierarchy, then we have a profound peace and feeling of release. With the mental plane, it creates enlightenment and regenerates a creative force. Enlightenment can reveal the causes of disease. Isn't this interesting? We need more scientists who are enlightened in the medical field to understand the causes of disease. It's pretty hard to understand the cause of disease where we're in the middle of experiencing a particular disease. But after we've lived with it for a while and we can stand aside from it, little glimpses of insight, moments of insight can be given to us as to the cause. And sometimes these causes are the result of a past life. If you are a great one, like some of the teachers we have studied with who have a disease, they've taken the cause of that disease is because it's a disease of humanity, and they're trying to neutralize that disease in the higher planes. So enlightenment can reveal the causes of disease and challenge us to correct them. It also reveals the steps to be taken after the healing is accomplished. Imagine going to a doctor today and the doctor knowing the cause of these serious diseases that people are dying from. Gives you the remedy for healing, and after you heal says, okay, now we're not done. Now we must move on so that the disease will not reoccur. See, we have vaccinations for measles and mumps and TB, but they're all coming back. We didn't heal the cause of these diseases, so they're coming back. As the mechanism of the body evolves, it needs different kinds of treatment, and the vaccinations no longer are sustaining, holding off the disease. So even though it worked and it saved many, many lives, these vaccinations, they didn't follow it up with what steps to take now that we know how to heal it, what are the next steps to take? Which was to understand the cause. Another step is prayer. To contact. Prayers are the effect or the effort to contact the hierarchy. Meditation is an effort to translate the contacted energy. So prayer is an effort to contact the hierarchy. Meditation is how to translate what we've been given. Sacrificial service is proof that we have contacted hierarchy. It is in sacrificial service that we know that the hierarchy is watching. Another step to heal the heart is selfish thoughts must be eliminated. Where it may be obvious to most of us in talking about selfish tendencies, when approach from the heart, a deeper understanding is revealed. For example, the mind says, how can I use this situation for my own benefit? That's the mind. This is something we often see with those who want to join a community of spiritual people. How can this benefit myself? I remember in Florida, when I was living there, I was at a Kinko's, photocopying dozens and dozens and dozens of papers for the class. This was before, we had the computer and we could send it through the internet and you could all download it. And this person was asking me about, what kind of a group White Mountain was. And so I was delighted to share. And the person said, well, if I came, what would be in it for me? I said, I don't know. I wouldn't want somebody like that to come into the group. See? What's in it for me? How can I use this situation for my own benefit? That's the mind. This is something we often see with those who want to join a community of spiritual people. There is an instinct for some to use the spirit of generosity of a spiritual community selfishly. We used to have people come in because they had an item to sell. They wanted to sell us insurance. They wanted to sell us this or that. And when we didn't buy, they left. However, the Agni teaching emphasizes that selfish thoughts are one of the greatest pollutants to the heart, for it turns all the electrical currents of our holy triad, the spiritual triad, off. Selfish thoughts. It's one thing to know it, it's another thing to stop it. Selfish thoughts are accumulated. They build upon themselves in such a way that they create a system of personal satisfaction. Once they get started, it is very difficult to remove selfish thoughts from the heart. See, there's no filter system in the heart. It's not purified yet. It's not cultured. It's an uncultured heart. They act very much like addictions, selfish thoughts. Once you find ways to satisfy your selfish thoughts, ways and so forth, you begin to use amazing and ingenious ways to keep this system fed. MM says that consciousness is in the heart. He is telling us that consciousness is in the chalice, which is oftentimes referred to as the heart. This is Agni teaching. Consciousness is in the heart, which means the chalice. So when you read Agni Yoga and they refer to the chalice, and it refers to the chalice, does this mean the heart? The cultured heart. If our heart is not pure, we will not expand our consciousness. This is why we are facing the conditions that we have now in the world. The heart of humanity is not pure. We are battling with evil and forces of darkness because the heart is not pure. The next step in healing the heart is to eliminate the thought that I am better than them. Many years ago, a group member gave a talk in which he used the term one-upmanship. I'd never heard that term before, but it stuck. And since then, I've seen that the one-upmanship crowd is a huge movement that has taken over the world, even in the spiritual community. It is a result of thinking, I am better than, you fill in the blank. I am younger, I am smarter, I have more money, I look better, I live in a better neighborhood, I have studied longer, I meditate better, I am a better educated person. And it goes on and on. When we compare ourselves to others, somehow in the end, our mind puts us on top. It is so ugly and most people cannot see it. A co-worker shares an idea with you and you respond and say, well, that's nice, but you know, I know something more than that. The teacher makes a comment to a student who ignores the comment with a one-upmanship comment. It means they're not thinking about the comment. What in that comment that the teacher gave to us is for us to learn from? But we want to show the teacher how important we are and how much we know. And that's one-upmanship, and it's ugly. It is very ugly, but the blinders of vanity and ego and glamour and illusion prevents us from recognizing this as an illness. What happens is this. The thought is in our heart. It says, I'm better than that person, that group, that teacher, and so forth. I remember one day this man came up to me and I said, well, have you finished reading Challenge for Discipleship? He says, yeah. And I said, well, you know, there are parts of it that I could resonate with and I thought was written well, but there was so much of it I felt like needed to be rewritten. And how many books have you written? Well, I haven't written any. Oh, okay. See, that's the mind. I am better. It is a stream of energy that comes to us through our heart. You then direct the heart in the wrong way. See, this is what I'm saying. The heart does not have a filter system if it's uncultured. So we then direct the heart in the wrong way, and the energy becomes destructive rather than constructive. That teacher is having a bad hair day. That teacher is egotistical. Why would that teacher say something to me like this? That idea, that comment that was given to help us strive towards something higher directs the heart in the wrong way. We are putting on the brakes by judging and measuring others by our own camera lens, our own clogged filter system. What you are doing really is demonstrating to your teacher, your friend, your co-worker that you are the only one. It is so crazy. If you observe your thoughts and actions and reactions, then you can take steps to correct the situation. You say to yourself, what must I do to purify my heart? Do I really think I am better than them? Showing off. We see our pets trying to show off to get attention. We see our children showing off to get attention. You see how people in classes and meetings show off. You see how people show off when they come together in big meetings. Show-offs pretend to show others how wise they are. In classes, they talk at you. Talking at you, they talk down to us. They teach us as if we're ignorant of what they have to say. They pretend to know everything, that they are all powerful, that they are this or that way, that they're a Ray 1 person, a person of power. Ray 1 person. I'm a person of power. So you'd better be cautious with them because they're Ray 1. Usually they will reference their primary ray as Ray 1. This means to them that they have a power that no other rays have, a power that can crush you. Actually, Ray 1 people, when they are not yet refined, have not refined the beauty of this ray, are very insensitive, selfish people. They think only of themselves, and of course it's very ugly. Who cares how much you know or how powerful you are if you have not yet cleansed your heart? When people tell me in their various ways of how knowledgeable they are, how important they are because they have studied the teaching for such a long time, I feel saddened, for I know that they have not yet practiced the cleansing of their heart. They are simply ambitious people. The fifth, drawing the attention to other people to yourself. This past week, I've been watching videos of many past WMEA events, conferences, musical performances, seminars, classes, and so forth. I learned so much from watching these videos and photographs. Other than the recognition of the aging process, that's pretty clear to see. I observed how people drew attention to themselves in the most subtle ways. In the musical performances, they would arrange themselves in such a way that the attention of the audience would be placed on themselves, or the quality of their voice, or their gestures. Or if the photographer was taking a photograph, they would position themselves front and center. I could always hear certain voices over those of the crowd by loud laughter or loud talk. There were many things I observed about how we draw attention to ourselves. You would be embarrassed. We can only be responsible for ourselves. If you really want to cleanse your heart, you must do this yourself. A teacher can bring the student's attention to their subtle mannerisms of drawing attention of others to themselves. However, it is the student himself who must transform himself. The teacher cannot transform the student, only the student can transform themselves. Most students in the West will not listen to a teacher because of their polluted hearts, because of flattery, vanity, and ego, but when they do, they become so beautiful and so healthy. Those with purified hearts have a high degree of psychic energy. I'm sure maybe I can get through this. Number 6, ornamenting oneself with the feathers of a peacock. I love peacocks. You know, we even have peacock feathers right here. Why is that? So often students will write papers, meditation reports on the teachings as if they are writing, if the teaching is originating with them, original to them. There are no references, no indications of the resource material. They are dressing themselves with the feathers of a peacock. Give them a subject from the teaching, and without any books around them, tell them to write a paper on their experiences. Tell them to write something about joy. Write about the whole subject of joy. Can they do it? Don't ornament yourself with the feathers of others. In the beginning, I know this is what we want to do, because as we write and teach, we're educating ourselves. But there comes a time when we want to write and teach from our experiences, from our knowledge, from the level of our consciousness, not the level of the great ones. Number 7, not being happy for the beauty, for the success, for the expansion, for the creativity of others. Can we be happy for the success of others? One day, in high school, a young girl achieved a goal of which she had worked toward for many years, an achievement that required direction and dedication and commitment as well as sacrifice. Once achieved, there was another girl in the school whose parents believed their daughter deserved the honor. The parents called the teacher, imposed their standing in the community. They were wealthy people, wealthy standing in the community, making the teacher announce that the honor would need to be shared or they would have the teacher fired. The deserving girl was disappointed, but told her parents that she felt, even though she had to share the honor, she knew she had been successful in achieving her goal the honest way, by her own hands and feet. So who's going to gain the most? The bribe of the parents or the several years of striving of the student? The undeserving girl and her parents ornamented themselves with vanity. It is a spiritual advancement to be happy for the success of others. To think, I am so happy my friend did it. It is so beautiful. It is only after we clean our hearts that we will have such great joy. Cruelty is one of the darkest spots in a person's heart. Cruelty in their thinking, in their talks, in their manners, and in their actions. Every day we must check ourselves in what we say, think, and do, even in how we look at one another in our mannerisms. Do you have cruelty in your looks and your decisions and your letters and phone calls? Where are you cruel? You must eliminate cruelty from the system of your heart. There are cruel girls, cruel boys, cruel mothers, and cruel fathers, cruel husbands, and cruel wives. When you can smash a person, listen to this, when you can smash a person and yet you do not. When you can slander and gossip and use treason against a person, the opportunity is right there in our hands, but you do not. You learn firsthand about nobility. One with a pure heart is a noble person. I am going to finish this. I only have 2 more points. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is prevalent in today's society. What does it mean? Hypocrisy is dishonesty, it is insincerity, it is falseness, it is deception. Some people say it is giving lip service. That's hypocrisy. And the last, bribery and flattery. How do we bribe people? We bribe people with our flattery, with false stories. You know, it's very difficult to flatter a spiritual student in the teaching. It's very difficult to flatter. So when you go up to a student in the teaching and you say, I don't mean to flatter you, but believe me, you're not. If that person is truly a spiritual individual, don't try to flatter them because it'll bounce off. Because such people have humility. And all we have to do is sit next to a great one, and we become even more humble because we have to see how far we yet have to go. So you can't bribe one who has a cultured heart. But this is how we bribe people, with our flattery, false stories, giving things, doing things for others to get something in return. Parents must be careful that they do not flatter their children. They should not tell them that they're going to be this and that, especially when the child's talents in that field are non-existent. You know, if the child wants to become a great pianist, have them take music lessons. See how dedicated they are. Will they take 2 or 3 lessons a week and practice 15 hours or 20 hours a week? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. If they have a talent, then that talent will turn them into, a life direction in the field of music. But if they take a lesson for, this week and then, I don't want to do it next week. And what do you mean practice? I have to go outside and play. Don't say, you're going to be a great pianist someday. Don't flatter. Let them prove it to themselves. So in closing, the purpose of purifying our hearts is to know who we are and who we are not. If we do not clean our hearts, the events, the viruses of our life will force us. The events and the viruses of our hearts will force us eventually to clean our heart. But, and the but is really important, but with heavy taxes. Okay. That's it. That's a lot. I know I gave you a lot, probably too much, but you can always get a copy of the talk or go to our YouTube WMEA website and listen to the video and make notes and think about it.